infrequently at the upper pole, not infrequently at the upper pole of the testicle is a little cyst. We can see a little cyst in the epididymis there. So we make it cyst at the upper pole of the testicle, one related to the testicle right here, and another to the epididymis. And these are called the appendix testicle or appendix epididymis or appendices. Good. I guess when the girls love you,
wait for it.
They will give you their heart and soul and more, eh? Whereas we guys are not so sure if we will follow that way. Because in the development of the male and female system, we have a little remnant of each in either of us. I mentioned the appendix testicle, yes? And some of you have done the prostatic ureter or the prostatic utricle. You haven't been there yet? Some of you have heard.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a little posterior old portion, like a diverticulum in the posterior prostatic ureter, and that's referred to as the utricle of the prostate. These two are the remnants of what your structures develop from. Usually your structures develop from the paramesonephric duct. So our remnants of the paramesonephric duct are the appendix of the testicle and the utricle. So that's what you girls leave in us. Are you going to remember what AU means? Those of you might speak French, au revoir. Au revoir. But most of you, all of you will know what the chemical suffix AU means. What does AU mean? Good. So that's what we have from the ladies in us. Alright? You won't forget that.
I'm honored.
Similarly, we leave a thing behind from our mesonephros in the ladies. And I said in the tube of the fallopian tube, those cells which lie above the surface, the usual level of the surface epithelium, some are above it, are called the
Peg cells.
the peg cell. And if you remember that, you remember what you have of us made with you from our mesonephric duct. Yesterday, Shetty mentioned the epiphoron and the paraphoron. Those are the P and the E. So what is the G? Sometimes you have remnants of the mesonephros going down into the vagina. It might be just a cyst, so-called Gardner cyst, or sometimes it opens as a sinus into the vagina, and that's called the Gardner duct, or sinus, or cyst. Okay? So if you remember textile, that makes that easy. So we ask in the exam, spot or MCQ, and it's easy, not it? Good. Okay, the structure of the testicle. I think all of you are familiar with it. We mentioned that there's a very thin layer of the visceral layer of the tunica vaginalis, yes? And that grayish white, somewhat slatish white color is because it has a very strong layer of connective tissue capsule, the tunica albuginea. Albuginea is supposed to be white, you know, but it's in your bluish white. That's the tunica albuginea. And then deep to that, you'll have a vascular layer. I don't know if you can see a little reddish outline there. Just above. And there's a vascular plexus on the inner aspect of the tunica vaginalis, and that's called the tunica vasculosa. So those are the three layers of the covering of the testicle. So, now, on the posterior Well, we just said the upper pole, superior and inferior poles, and the anterior surface, as you can see, somewhat convex. The back side, the posterior aspect of the testicle is somewhat flattened. It's somewhat flattened. You can see that. And that area is where the ductal structures from the testicle will leave into the epididymis head, and the vascular structures are coming in. In addition, the tunica albuginea bulges into the posterior aspect of the testicle, almost dividing the testicle into two compartments, like the mediastinum in the pleural cavity, divided into two. It almost separates the testicle into two. And that partition is referred to as the mediastinum testis. Okay? And from the fibrous mediastinum testinum, there are a number of septi which will go into the substance of the testicle itself, divided into some 240 or so lobules, and each of which has 1 to 4 seminiferous tubules. The vessels will also enter at this area in the mediastinum testis. On a structure, we can see a lobule with the seminiferous tubules going to the histology of that. And from this, we have a duct which looks straight. You can see that. And that's the recti ductulum. And they into a network, all of them. You can see all the straight ones into a network called the recti testis. And from there, you get some initially straight 15 or so efferent ductules, ductuli efferentes, and they head up by the epididymal head, as you can see. And from there, they join up to a single duct, which becomes highly coiled in the body of the epididymis, and then down to the tail. At the tail part, we might have a little aberrant ductule, but it's of no great significance. And from here commences the first facet, or the ductus deferens. Alright? I want you to appreciate this. You see where the epididymis is tend to be more posteriorly placed. It's posterior medial, especially the head of the testicle. So when you examine patients with gentle, of course, you squeeze the testicle hard, the guy on a puncture. They examine the testicle with nice hands. They love when the girls examine them, even the male guys. And further at the back of the testicle, you can gently feel the head of the testicle and palpate down. At the back, you feel the body and then the tail. And the epididymis, the vas, it feels like a cord and pretty tough. Feels like what the most thing is attached to that piece of that consistency. I'm telling you that you can get cysts of the epididymis. Well, I mentioned that already. But furthermore, you can get what are called retention cysts in the epididymis. And when that happens, it contains some spermatic components, degenerate, and it's called a spermatocele. You got that? It's called a spermatocele. So the testicles, the scrotum, suppose you just have one structure, the testicle. But that's here where it can be enlarged and you get a vaginal hydrocele. And in that instance, the testicle will be more posteriorly placed. Now, when you get a spermatocele retention system of the epididymis with degenerate, broken down things, sperms, etc., it will form a cyst. So he will have a cystic swelling in the testicle. You'll see that another swelling, cystic swelling on the upper posterior aspect of the spermatocele. He might have one here in the spermatic cord, the encysted hydrocele at the cord. That's easy to identify because once you find the cord structure, you'll feel it's related to that encysted hydrocele. Whereas this one is a little bit more tricky. And you always find that when the clinical exam. You feel the testicle and then you feel a swelling on top. But the important thing is on top, superior to the testicle, but it is posteriorly placed. Yeah? So that's a spermatocyte. It's posterior place, and you can tap it. And you tap it looks like if you add a little milk to water. In the old days, they used to drink barley water. It is described by English as barley water appearance, the fluid of the spermatocyte. Okay? So the vast difference now commences at the end of the cord epididymis and runs up in the spermatocyte cord. Now we don't need to go tremendously into the conference anymore. This is just showing you the mediastinum testis at the back there, with the head of the epididymis or part of the epididymis. So the structure of the spermatocyte is always posterior, it plays to the testicles. You appreciate that? And the testicle is passed through the superficial ring through the inguinal canal and leaves the canal through the deep inguinal ring. It gets to the inferior epigastric vessels just about there. Yes? And they pass upwards initially as it hooks around, and then the vas, it's retroperitoneal, crosses over everything, so that's easy to remember. Crosses over everything in the pelvis, so that's external iliac vessels. You have the ocular nerve and vessels there, it will cross over there. Yes? And head to the back, inferior posterior aspect of the bladder towards the base of the bladder. It even hooks over the ureter. So the vas crosses over everything in the pelvis, so that's easy to remember. Since I'm on this diagram, the testicles receive its arterial supply by the testicular artery, which is coming from the abdominal aorta, just below the level of the renal arteries way up, and they come down and to the deep ring. They are crossing over the ureter we said from before, and they to the deep ring and go to the testicle. And the veins, there are tremendous veins in the inguinal canal. That's the tremendous veins. And they usually end up about 2 or 3 veins beneath the deep ring and ultimately destroyed into one. Remember, I highlighted on the left side the testicular vein enters into the left renal vein. You can see that. And I told you the significance of that. Right? The suprarenal vein immediately enters opposite. And the substance of the catecholamines, adrenaline, are vasoconstrictor. And one of the scenarios that it has a constrictor effect. So that the venous return from testicle can be impaired. So that's the left renal vein. My other theory is that the descending duodenum second part runs across here to form the third part and then ascends to the fourth. And this third part of the duodenum horizontal part can be compressed. You remember the syndrome? The Wilks syndrome or Rokitansky syndrome is compressed. Why? Because of that guy there. The superior mesenteric artery and the abdominal aorta acting as a pinchcock. Now you've seen that the duodenum is pretty thick and muscular. But what else is that being compressed there? The left renal vein is loose. You just have to touch it and it stops. So you can, that's my theory. I'll have to try to prove it, but I don't want to prove it just yet. That's another theory mechanism. Since I'm here, you're doing the pelvis. And this is a little problem. The Creator has so much things to do, you know. This is a little thing that probably wasn't too right. Look at the common iliac artery on the right there. What is it crossing over? The left common iliac vein. Right iliac right angle. This is that. The right common iliac is also crossing it, but not at right angle, it's a little bit more obliquely. You see that? In truth, he should have put the vein in the front side. Yeah? You agree? He should have put the vein
artery has more pressure.
Of the artery.
Yeah, more pressure would compress it.
And this is bears out in real life when you girls get pregnant.
Yeah.
You have an increased incidence of venous thrombosis in your left side than the right. This is one mechanism of the theory And if you examine the vein there, the lumen is narrow, which you should detect it out. Furthermore, most of the baby heads come to lie on the left side, so-called left occipital anterior, and it compresses there. The two things are acting against you guys. So be active when you're going to get pregnant. Get fit. The lymphatics from the testicles arise in superficial angle plexuses, and they'll accompany the artery and end up into the paratheotic nerves. It said that the testicular artery comes down, and in some books they divide into two, a median and lateral. The lateral will go to the epididymis because it's posterior lateral, and the other is the testicular artery proper. And this is a nice diagram showing the testicular artery. Can you see one in the testicular artery? There's two. Who should be this fellow here? Coming down as the... Can you make it out there? Yeah. Two should be this. Oh, it's not on this. Up here, yeah. It's not on the monitor. Yeah, you can see two differential artery and three the cremasteric artery, and they come down. These are the anteriorly, should be the external pudendal arteries, and posteriorly, posterior scrotal arteries, which we mentioned to you. And on a more sophisticated scenario, we have the epididymal artery, a branch of the testicular artery there, and then the testicular artery proper divides into an internal, that's what they call it, and an inferior branch. The internal branch will form the vasculosa plexus and will send branches inwards to the septic supply of the testicle, whereas the other will tend to remain outside. And you can see the lower part, the so-called centrifugal artery, which is the inferior one. It's joined up with the differential artery to form the anastomosis. So the testicle has these three arteries, and it is said that sometimes we do, we have some rough hernias when we're operating on them. Sometimes we damage the testicular artery, and when you do that, we have to tie it off. We will repair that. It's too small to repair. But the testicle will not die because of these other collateral things. But some people argue about whether that testicle will actually be functional. With me? It might be alright to keep it looking alive, but function might be impaired. These are just some diagrams of the veins. If you're looking from the posterior aspect of the scrotal vein, but more of this one. The testicular vein, papilliform plexuses go all the way up. And you can see now the vas deferens. It gets its artery from the inferior vesicle. This is the vas is coming down towards the inferior aspect. Some people say it also gets from the superior as well. Superior vesicle and inferior vesical artery. And it's headed down to the posterior base of the bladder, where you have the prostate gland, and you have the seminal vesicles, 5 centimeters long. To me, looks like a cocoon. You Jamaicans, some of you are familiar with the cocoon, and you find them in the earth, and you lift them up, and they point to the west, and they move, I'm not sure if they're pointing really in our command or in our direction. You don't see like many of you know what this cocoon. You lost your heritage. Okay, and it comes down, it will pass over the ureter, hook over the ureter, and comes down. The seminal vesicle is there. I'll come to seminal vesicle, it's not required. Just the nerve supplies to these things. It's from T thoracic sympathetic. We can see it's coming from T10 and primary T11, and they come down with the artery to the testicle. Sympathetic is an important thing here. The parasympathetic is unimportant to a greater extent. Diagram is a little darker colored. You can see the seminal vesicle there and the vas. And on the left side you can see where the ureter is being crossed anteriorly by the vas. Now the vas, as it approaches this area, becomes dilated. You can see that. Yes? And that dilated area is called the ampulla. It then narrows down and joins with the duct of seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct, which enters, this is you're looking from behind. This is the old portion from the posterior urethra, the prostatic urethra we mentioned earlier. And they enter usually on either side or into the prostatic urethra, the ejaculatory duct. Their seminal vesicles highly coiled 5 centimeters in length. It's said to be looking like a pyramidal shape. Mr. Fletcher said he could feel seminal vesicles when he does a PR on a patient, a rectal examination. I guess his fingers longer than mine. I just really read the superior surface of the prostate, just about here with my finger. But some of you guys will have longer fingers and can feel the seminal vesicles. The top part of the seminal vesicles are covered with the peritoneum, which is over the superior surface of the bladder. And that's just showing you the vas deferens crossing over everything and hooking over the urethra. This is just a section showing you the ampulla of the vas, seminal vesicle forming with the vascular ejaculatory duct and opening into the posterior urethra there. That's a rough diagrammatic representation. The seminal vesicles, they contribute about 85% of the ejaculate, yes? A number of factors, especially fructose, for nutritional requirements of the spermatozoa. And its important nerve supply is again the sympathetic L1 in this instance, because that is what going to make you shoot. Number point, shoot and score, the sympathetic. So that is quickly the whole thing.